Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Welcome back to Ball Watching. This is a new episode for you guys coming off of the 0-0 boring draw versus Portland. It will be just me, myself today, Justin Graham. Jake and I are starting to hit those summer months when it comes to weddings for travel and work for travel and all those things. So we're trying to do our best and hopefully meet up for a recap of this one as we get into the preview for Dallas. But like I said, just me today. So not a whole lot of other news outside of this right now. I think we saw from an injury standpoint, it sounds like Nilsson's knee is getting back. It sounds like Yaro's getting a little bit more healthy as well. So it seems like we are getting to a point in the season where we will have a little bit better of a full lineup. And we'll touch on that later a little bit more in the starting 11 with one minor caveat to that with a suspension. But let's get into Dallas more specifically. So we have played them twice last season and once this season. Looking at last season, it was an away game on June 7th. Was our first one against them. It was a 2-0 loss. It was originally that one, and everybody's going to remember this, the rain out on May 6th. Played 50 minutes down there, then got postponed, rescheduled for literally a whole month later. And then we had to go back down there for 40 minutes. We gave up two late goals for Dallas. They scored in the 80th and 89th, and we lost that game 2-0. Then we came back home on August 30th, and it was a much better game for us, a 2-1 City win. The FC Dallas goalkeeper got a red card in the 12th minute. He had miscommunication with his defender, used his hand outside of the box as Alm was pressing him. Great press there by Alm. And then we had two late goals that we had. We had an own goal by Dallas in the 82nd. Marcanic celebrates it. And then we had a cross in from Leuven. Klaus dummies it and just buried it right on the inside of the post for Thor in the 84th. Great finish by Thor, something that we've been waiting to see the entire season and a lot more of last season. Obviously still kind of holding on to that now. And then FC Dallas got one back in the 90th plus 5. Berkey spills one. The majority of our team was turning around, getting ready to counter and running up the field already. But unfortunately, it was an easy tap-in for them. More specifically on this season, we had a home match against them on April 6th, a 0-0 draw. Been there, done that, as you guys know. That was our 5th draw of the season and our first without any goals. Now we are becoming a little bit more regular with that. The one back then on April 6th was kind of similar to the Portland game, I would say. But we had on that one, we had 27 shots, but only 7 landed on goal, 9 corners, 67% possession, and 5 saves from Roman. I think he was pretty much the key to making sure that we got out of there with a draw on that one, but we need to finish some of those goals. Now getting a little bit more into Dallas and where they are as a team this season. I think we've already covered this a little bit in the preview of the first game, but key moves in the offseason for them. Peter Musa. Is they're definitely the biggest one that they made a big splash in the offseason. They acquired Musa from Benfica on a club record $9.7 million fee that could rise to $13 million in add-ons, and he's already doing pretty well for them. So I'm assuming they will get at least some of that, if not all of that, as he continues to progress this season. The Croatian international striker is a DP for them, obviously, with that amount of money. And he tallied 17 goals and 5 assists in 66 matches for Benfica. We'll touch on a little bit more about him in a bit. And then another one for them is Omar Gonzalez. He's a Dallas native. He signed with his local team in free agency after an illustrious career starting to wind down. Former U.S. men's national team. He is a standout, and he adds a lot more depth to their center back position, which they absolutely need. And it doesn't seem like it's been helping a whole lot because as we touch on them more specifically in 2024, their record of 3-8-5 win-loss draw that puts them 13th in the West with only 14 points. Yes, I said that correct. They have 14 points through 16 games. I know that we're in a little bit of a slump as well this season, but this team is absolutely struggling. They are doing a little bit better at home than they are away. They have a record of 3-2-2 at home, while they have yet to get a win away. They are 0-6-3. Now, here's the interesting part. They only have 18 goals for as well. So that's exactly why they are in that spot. They are the 6th worst in the MLS when it comes to that. However, their goals against is 25. I had kind of felt like when you're that low, you're probably giving up a ton more goals. Unfortunately, that's the exact amount of goals that we have given up this season. They are just not scoring as much as us. Now, when we look at some of the key results for them and kind of how these games are working out to put them in this position, it's actually their last 4 games are some of the strongest opponents that they've played all season. When we look at, they just tied Minnesota last weekend, who was 3rd in the West, in a 1-1 draw when they were at Minnesota. The game before that, they lost 1-0 at LAFC. The game before that, they lost 3-1 at LA Galaxy. And then the game before that, they actually drew RSL, who's 1st in the West, 3-3. So looking at those last 4 games, they've literally played the number 1, 2, 3, and 4 seeds currently in the West in their last 4 games. So this is a game that I think, and we'll touch on it a little bit later, getting into the keys to the game and things that we need to be looking for. But this is a game where I think we can really do a bounce back game, and kind of hinting at that when we're talking about the title of our episode here. But this is a game where you're looking at a team that has already been struggling this season. They're coming off of 2 draws and a loss in their last 4 games. So that's a total of 12 points they could have gotten, only grabbed 2. Yes, they're playing against the top 4 teams in the West. However, you got to figure out a way to get points, and this team is not doing that. And I think their heads are a little bit down, and they're probably looking at us like, all right, this is a game that we can come home and win, and this is a game that we need to be geared up for, because unfortunately, as Jake has mentioned as well earlier on a couple of the episodes, we kind of play to the level of our opponent, which is great when we're playing LAFC, LA Galaxy, and teams like that. But unfortunately, now we're going to a Dallas team that we did not do well the last time we went there last season, obviously with a little bit with the caveat there of the rain out. But this is a game that we really need to focus on and grab the points, because this is a very beatable team. Now, when we talk about the team more specifically, key players to watch. I already mentioned Petar Musa. He's a 26-year-old Croatian designated player, 6'2", 185 pounds. Big guy up top. He has 6 international appearances for Croatia. For anybody knows anything about international soccer, Croatia is a pretty strong team when it comes to the Euros, which are also coming up this weekend. For anybody that is not aware of those, we'll touch on that a little bit later. He already has 5 goals and 2 assists so far this season, starting in 15 of the games that he has played in. He has not scored or assisted in his last 4 games, though. And yes, we talked about they're not scoring a lot of goals. However, they have scored 5 goals in their last 4 games. So for him not to be a contributor in any of those means that he's probably looking at this and trying to absolutely find a way to get on the score sheet or to tally a point with an assist. So he's going to be one to keep an eye out on as we talk about keys to the game later on. And then also one that we've mentioned multiple times, Jesus Ferreira, 23-year-old designated player, striker, born in Colombia, but he's been on the U.S. men's national team multiple times. He has 15 goals and just 23 appearances for the U.S. men's national team, which when I was doing this research, I was absolutely shocked to find that out. I will say he's one of those guys that gets more minutes in I would say, some of the less meaningful games for us. However, he did get some great minutes in the Gold Cup last year, and he won the Golden Boot for us in that tournament, having the most goals of the tournament with 7. I will say he did already miss a full month this season from late March to late April with muscle injuries. It was not very specific there. I think they were trying to keep that a little bit closer to reps. And he has 2 goals and 4 assists this season. So just in 10 appearances, only starting 6 of those with his injury that happened earlier this season. And then also I want to mention Asier Iramendi, who is a 34-year-old center defensive mid from Spain. He's 5'10", 165 pounds. Dallas signed him back in August this year, and this is a guy that is absolutely one of those that we have historically seen in MLS, where a guy has had a great career over in Europe and now kind of looking to finish it out here. He's played nearly 350 games in the Spanish top flight in La Liga for Real Sociedad and Real Madrid. He also has 3 national team caps for Spain. That was back in 2017. And to think about this guy, when we're talking about a guy that is ending his career here, Madrid bought him for $32 million back in 2013, and he won the Champions League with them in 2014 and 2014. And then Madrid sold them back to Real Sociedad in 2015 for just $16 million. And then Dallas obviously signed him for free in the fall of last year. He also missed a month this year from March to April with a groin injury. He has 2 goals and 3 assists in just 11 appearances, starting 9 of those this season. 2 other honorable mentions are guys, we talked about this, I think, a lot more last year. This FC Dallas team almost seems to be a breeding ground or a graveyard is what I would say, actually, for U.S. men's national team guys. When you look at, we already talked about Jesus Ferreira, who is still up and coming with his age. But when you look at Sebastian Lletget and Paul Arriola are 2 of the guys that we want to do honorable mention for. Both U.S. men's national team guys, 33 caps and 8 goals. First was Sebastian Lletget for the U.S. men's national team, only 1 goal, 0 assists so far for Dallas this season. And then Paul Arriola, the right winger, U.S. men's national team, 50 caps, 10 goals. However, just 1 goal and 1 assist so far for Dallas again this year. But these are guys that, when you have that many caps, 33 and 50 caps for the U.S. men's national team, these are guys that know how to play and can absolutely own the midfield. And especially on a younger team like Dallas has a couple of younger guys, it's very important for some of these guys to take control and make sure that they, especially when they're on these skids, these guys are locker room guys. They're ones that are going to tell you and help you figure it out and help you find a way to right the wrongs. However, we are looking for them not to do that against City. Two other players to note that are actually out on injuries is Alan Velasco. He's the left winger. He's out until July. And Paxton Komikal is a center mid, and he's out for the season. I'm going to take a quick drink as we then get into the style and the head coach of FC Dallas. The head coach, Peter Lucine, is an interim coach, and this is very recent news as FC Dallas fired their head coach, Nico Estevez, on Sunday following their draw with Minnesota. Again, as I already mentioned, it was a tough little stretch there for them, but this is a team that you cannot be in the position that you're in with some of these major names. So he was fired when they have 14 points through 16 games played, as I mentioned earlier. But Peter Lucine joined FC Dallas in 2013 as a veteran player. After retiring, he stayed with the club as an academy coach before joining the team as the first team assistant and is now the interim coach. As a player, though, he did play a ton professionally in France, Spain. So looking at the formation and what they have historically played underneath of Nico Estevez, who knows that Peter Lucine will also keep it that way, but their typical formation is a 3-4-2-1. The style, again, we talk about it, that this is one of those teams that we can talk about the style and what they have done, but I think this is a kind of a turning point in their season where we could see it change a lot more. But I would expect that they do need to stop the bleeding for allowing goals in. And obviously they need to score some more goals. So I think some of the things that they look to do historically throughout the season already are some long shots, some short passes, and then also an offsides trap. When you play a three in the back, this is something that we've talked about it with Marcanic having a little bit of issues there. But when you have three in the back, you really have to make sure that your lines are tight and everybody is in the same formation. And then those guys try to play a little bit higher up the field. So if you think about someone like Joao Klaus, or Celio trying to get in behind, this is when their defensive line steps up and then those guys hop offside. So trends and storylines for this FC Dallas team. Generally, their last 5 home games is a loss, draw, win-win draw, 0.89 points per match at home with a +1 goal differential. So we mentioned it already. They are a little bit stronger at home with a 3-2-2 record. Away, they have yet to get a win. So when we talk about this, all these facts for them are not going to be that high, as this is a team that is still struggling and is in the bottom of the table in the MLS. However, when we look at this from a home perspective, they are going to be a little bit stronger. And I would say one of their strengths that we need to keep an eye on is shooting from free kicks. And we'll talk about that a little bit more on the fact of on their offensive side. When we look at this, they have some of their average shot distance is third longest in MLS. They have average shots in set pieces, but they're tied for third in goals for in set pieces in the MLS. More generally, for their offensive side, their 1.16 XG per 90 is 23rd in the MLS. 1.13 goals for is basically very similar to their XG of 24th. So dead last in non-pen XG for this team. This is a team that is just struggling to create chances that are not free kicks. So their home form, they do a little bit better of a 1.43 XG, which is 20th in the MLS, with a 57 minutes per goal average. So when do these goals come for them? 33% of them come just after halftime in the 10-minute span from the 51st minute to the 60th minute. And that's why I would say this is one of those things that if we are getting to a main key for this for us, I'll go ahead and just say it right now, is get to halftime either leading or at least tied. And I would say once we have that key, the first 15 minutes of that second half, we need to make sure that we do not give up a goal. I think that's something that needs to be absolutely focused on by this team. They are 47.9% possession, which is bottom 10 in the MLS. So very similar to us. And I think it's one of we've already talked about, to where if we play a team that does not keep possession very much, I think we have shown that, especially with this team this year, we can take that side of it. However, I want to make sure that we don't just sit on the ball. We actually need to be a little bit more forward with our possession and getting guys slipped in. So now talking about their defense, which I mentioned has for goals against is very similar to us. However, they are giving up a lot more chances. Their 1.61 XGA per 90 is third worst in the MLS, and their 1.56 goals per 90 is bottom 10. Unfortunately, so are we. Their home form, a little bit better. Instead of third worst XGA of 1.61 at home, their 1.26 XGA is 10th worst, giving up a goal every 63 minutes. So I would say one of the things that we need to also focus on from a defensive perspective for them is they have the third most shots against and number 6 in shots allowed in open play. So that is something that I think that we've really picked up on as a team this year is our open play ability as opposed to just our free kicks. However, I do think that having Lubin back in this lineup has been massive for us from a dead ball perspective. They're only number 28 in tackles and number 2 in errors and leading to an opposing shot, which I think is that second one right there is a massive one for us. The tackles piece, not as concerning. I think that's kind of a mixture of guys and depending on how the teams play against them. But number 2 in errors leading to an opposing shot is something that we need to capitalize on this. As we are pressing this team, we need to lead to shots. And then also when we get those shots, they need to be on target, Joao Klaus, and they need to be put away and scored. This is a team where we get our chances. Let's put them away and put them away early. They're number 4 in passes per defensive action, AKA meaning they're not much of a press either. So even though they don't keep a lot of possession, they sit back a little bit more and they're a little bit more compact and look to go at you in the counterattack. They're number 2 in saves and number 6 in save percentage with their post-shot XG minus goals against of 3.3, meaning that their goalkeeper, Martin Paz, is way above average. And I think that he is one of those guys that even though this team is struggling, he is keeping them in it very similar to us with Roman Berkey. I would say keys to the game for this, as we've already touched on it, but maybe bullet it out. The first one here is going to be possession. We talk about it that they're already a team that does not like to keep the ball either. So it's one of those where I think we can actually dictate the play of the game, and that's going to be important for us in knowing how we want to choose our attack. But let's not just keep possession and just kind of swing it back and forth. And I think we can do that to really find our spots. But when we have it, let's be meaningful with it. I think that's one of those things where you hear about passes breaking lines. And it's one thing that Ricky Puig is absolutely dominating the MLS in. I would love to see a little bit more out of this in Leuven now that he's a little bit back in form is when we say breaking lines, a pass that goes through the midfield or the defenders and breaking that line of defense to slot somebody in. I think that's going to be a big key for us here. And I love the one that Jake added in here as well. Score early. If we hit them early, this is going to be a huge weight off of our shoulders, and they're going to start to scramble again underneath of an interim head coach. Regardless if you're at home, this is a team that has been struggling. 2 points out of a possible 12 in their last 4 games, very low on the table. The wheels could come off. If we can get one in the first half, this would be a huge piece for us. And as I say piece, set piece defensive or defending for us is also going to be very key in this. I feel like this is one of the things where if they're not creating XG and they're one of the worst teams in creating XG in the MLS through the run of play, we cannot give dumb fouls and kind of just let them have free kicks around our box, even for shots or whipped in balls. We talked about it multiple times. I trust Rome to be able to make saves, but if you get a free kick with a wall and they put it up over the top, which is something that Jesus Ferreira or Peter Musa can absolutely do, that would be a terrible way for us to give up a goal. So I think not only set piece defending, but making sure that we are not giving up dumb fouls around our box. I would say even within 30 yards to where they have a chance to whip a ball in. And I think the major thing here for us is to just get a W. This is something that this team has struggled to do. And I think getting one on the way here could really be a nice little flow into the rest of the season for us. The one thing that is kind of a struggle, we've mentioned that, yes, they're underneath of a interim head coach. You've seen it before, especially with the Blues, which was 5 years ago today. Congrats to the Blues on the Stanley Cup. It's a bounce back. When you fire your manager, some of the guys, sometimes that's a locker room cancer guy when you think about it. And it's like, now we just want to go out and have fun, play for this new guy, show them that we are a team to be reckoned with. And that's going to be something that I think this team's going to have a little bit more of a spark than what we've seen throughout the regular season so far from them. So I think getting an away W is a massive key for us. But this is something that we just can't come out and just assume they're going to roll over because they're struggling. This is a team that can absolutely catch fire if needed. And we do not want to be the first team to let them do that. So I'm going to do a couple quick plugs. If you guys have been listening to us for this long and you have not gone to souljuice.com and use code BALLWATCHING for 20% off, I don't know what you're doing. It's starting to heat up in St. Louis. You can also go to Deerberg, Straub, Schnucks, Sam's, Mobile on the Runs. You can get them absolutely everywhere. We're working to get Luis a little bit more integrated into St. Louis as well with Soul Juice. So go to souljuice.com using code BALLWATCHING for 20% off. And then I also want to mention the pitch. I will not be able to be there this weekend because of a wedding. However, for the game, I will be there on Saturday before the game for the Euros. And that's something that I want to touch on real quick. that we'll probably touch on a little bit more in the recap with Jake, and we'll have a little bit more banter back and forth. But the Euros is a massive tournament with all the European countries. And on Saturday, more specifically, you have Hungary versus Switzerland at 8 a.m., Spain versus Croatia at 11 a.m. That is what I will be at the pitch for. And then Italy, Albania is also at 2 p.m. on Saturday. And if you want to stay there also for the city game, they also have Poland versus Netherlands at 8 a.m. the next morning. Just grab a cot and stay at the pitch, watch the city game, drink a couple frozen Irish coffees, take a nap, wake up, watch more soccer on Sunday, and tune into our recap as well. And lastly, go to series6company.com, use code BALLWATCHING for 15% off. I already sported the polo that I had, and they have a ton of new gear as well. When you look at some of the different things around St. Louis and the local brands, you can go get shirts for Tam Ave, anything related to Dogtown and everything else around St. Louis. Go to series6company.com using code BALLWATCHING for 15% off. And now I'm going to bring us into our presenting sponsor, the Hoffman Brothers Starting 11. Before I get into the actual starting 11, I think the reason that we have the Hoffman Brothers more specifically sponsor this part is talking about that a starting 11 sets the tone for a game. And I know there's a read that Jake has already done, and similarly, the Hoffman Brothers are a reliable defense for unexpected challenges for anything when it comes to the heat in St. Louis or the weather with the tornadoes and all of the rain. But these guys, I cannot talk about it enough. And if you guys haven't seen their trucks driving around, this is going to be one of those things where if you hear it, you're going to start to see it more. These guys are working their tails off right now in St. Louis. We've been trying to tell everybody to go get the home protection plan, to be ahead of the service before the heat hits. I'm seeing these guys working double time, working around St. Louis, seeing these Hoffman Brothers trucks all around Brentwood, Clayton, St. Louis, even out in the county as well. These guys are all over the place, and they are white glove service. Jake has talked about it when he had his technician come out and greet him. They send you a picture of who's going to be at your house, so you don't have just someone randomly knocking on your door. These people put on these slips on their shoes before they come in your house. They are extremely polite, and these are the best guys to work with. So go to hoffmanbros.com or give them a call at 314-664-3011. They will take care of you to the greatest extent possible. Getting into the starting 11, this is a little bit more of an interesting one. Like we already talked about, I think that this can be more of a bounce back game for us. But obviously we're going to have Berkey and net. And Jake and I have kind of talked about and gone back and forth on this. I think we might give Watts a little chance at left back with Nilsson, Parker, and Totland across the back. I would say for an alternative perspective on the back four, could put Marcanic back at left. I just don't think that he's been doing it for us. Also, Yarrow as center back. If Nilsson's knee is still having some issues, it sounds like Yarrow is back and practicing and getting more fit. This could be a game for him to get in as well. I just think that Nilsson's going to be good enough to go with Parker to be that center back pairing with Totland on the right. Then, unfortunately, I mentioned it, we do have Durkin suspended with his 6th yellow card of the year. Yes, you get suspended after 5, but he had a good behavior free game back, but he will be out this one. So in front of the back four, we will have likely Blum and Leuven. And then in front of them, I think we've already talked about, there's been a couple different things where you can go with, is it AZ? Is it Kojima? Is it Sam? Is it Thor? But I think we're going to stick with Celio, Kojima, and Indy with Klaus up top. And I think if you want to, we could have AZ go in there. I don't think this is a game for Thor to start. I wouldn't mind seeing a Sam start at this point, maybe give Celio a little bit of a rest. And one more thing to note, as we already talked about in the Durkin suspension, yes, Totland and Celio each picked up their 5th yellow cards versus Portland as well. However, both of them have already gone 5 straight games earlier in the season without a yellow card, so they are on good behavior as well, and they are good to go until they get their next yellow. More specifically now, we've taken you through the preview, everything you need to know about Dallas, their key players, kind of the key facts about them offensively, then into our starting 11 and the keys to the game. What are our predictions? Jake is coming out here with a 3-0 dub. I think this is one where he thinks that we're just going to absolutely pounce on these guys after they are coming in here a little bit limping and struggling. I'm going with a little bit more conservative 2-1 dub. And when I say that, I think it could be very similar to our second game against them. I would love for us to get one probably in the 33rd minute, and then we get to half up 1-0. We close them down. We score again in the 60th, but then I think we give up a leaky one as this team really starts to press and realize that they need to grab points just as badly as we do. So more specifically on the betting lines, City is plus 190. Dallas is plus 120, and the draw is plus 310. So we are just slight underdogs in this one, which is not surprising as an away game. The over 2.5 is minus 135, and the under is plus 105 for that 2.5 goals. Jake's hammer on this game is City money line in the game total over 1.5 at plus 255. He's looking to make a little bit of a comeback as I've been a little bit up on him in the betting aspect of it. I'm also going with a plus money one here, and I'm going to take it regardless. City to score at least 2 goals in this game. So the actual bet is City team total over 1.5 is plus 140. This is a game where I don't think we go down there and we just get 1 goal and it's not going to be a 1-1 draw. I think we need to go down there, score first, open those floodgates, and we'll get at least a second, maybe a third, similar to what Jake's prediction is. And those are our bets for this game. I would like to thank you all for joining. I know this was a little bit of a quicker one, but not a whole lot to talk about. This is just a game where we just need to go down there and get this dub. I think this is a team that is really struggling right now in FC Dallas, and this is a game where I would love to see us have a little bit of a bounce back. I think everybody has to be frustrated in the locker room as well, not just fans, with a 0-0 draw at Portland, and this would be a hell of a bounce back game to go get points that we absolutely need to get, and we should be getting. We talk about this Dallas team being lower in the standings and struggling already. We need to pounce on these guys, and this is the perfect opportunity to do it. So for anybody that is not making the trip down to Dallas, get to the pitch, watch the game. It's going to be a beautiful weekend in St. Louis. It's going to be hot. Grab a beer, grab a frozen Irish coffee, grab a Dr. Pepper, and relax and enjoy the show. City is going to get this dub, all for City.